17 years of marriage unraveled with a single confession. My heart belongs to someone else. At first, I thought I had misheard her. Rebecca, my wife, my partner, the woman I had shared my life with, stood there, arms folded, lips pressed tight, speaking as though she were the one betrayed. Then came the truth that broke something deep inside me. "It's Scott," she said coldly. "I never stopped loving him. I should have been with him all along." Scott, her ex, the same man she once swore was her worst decision. But the deepest wound didn't come from Rebecca. It came from Lily, my stepdaughter. I had raised Lily since she was 6, loved her as my own. She was 23 now, old enough to understand the weight of loyalty, the depth of betrayal. And still, she stood beside her mother, arms crossed, her voice a mirror of Rebecca's. "Mom deserves happiness. Scott is her soulmate. You have to understand that. Dad." She still called me Dad, as if the word had no meaning, as if it hadn't been built on years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and tearful talks. I spent weeks drowning in the silence, trying to piece together why they had turned on me, why the life I gave them wasn't enough. But the answer, no matter how much I hated it, was simple. They didn't see me. Not truly. I was a role, a provider, a stand-in, someone who was there because he had to be, not because he meant something. So when it came time for the divorce, I didn't fight. I signed every document without hesitation, gave her everything she asked for just to be free. And then I made a choice that shocked the room into silence. I legally gave up my parental rights to Lily. Rebecca's victorious smirk vanished. Lily's face lost all color. You're not going to be my dad anymore?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You made it clear I never truly was," I replied. "So I won't pretend anymore. You chose her. You chose him. Now you live with that." Lily's eyes searched mine, looking for the man who once stayed up with her through childhood fevers, who bought her first car, who cheered at her graduation. But I was done. My lawyer slid the final paperwork across the table. I signed, and just like that, I was no longer her father. Rebecca expected me to fight, to beg, to cling to some shred of the life we had built. Instead, I left them sitting in the wreckage of their own choices. At first, Rebecca was radiant, victorious. She had what she wanted. Scott, the one that got away. They moved in together quickly, spending the money and assets she gained from the divorce to create their picture-perfect life. Lily, still convinced she'd done the right thing, stood by her mother's side. But real life isn't a fairy tale, especially not for people who betray those who truly loved them. Scott, the man Rebecca shattered our life for, turned out to be a shadow of the man she remembered. At first, he was charming and sweet, like he'd stepped out of a memory. But it didn't last. The charm faded. He had no drive, no income. Rebecca paid for everything, his clothes, the bills, even his gas. The affectionate man from her past began to morph into something else. Cold, critical. "You've aged, Rebecca," he muttered one night. "You're not who you used to be." At first, she laughed it off. The second time, it left a mark. Then came the late nights, the missed calls, the unfamiliar perfume on his clothes. She waited up for him once. Scott stumbled in at 3 a.m., reeking of alcohol and a scent that wasn't haze. When she confronted him, he didn't even try to lie. "You really thought this was going to last," he scoffed. "I never wanted to settle down. I just wanted to see if the spark was still there." "It's not." She begged, pleaded, tried to remind him of what they once had. He laughed, shoving clothes into a bag. "You're pathetic," he muttered. "No wonder your husband didn't fight for you." Then he walked out, and Rebecca was left alone, with her decisions, her fantasies, and her regret. In the cold silence of an empty house, the weight of her choices began to settle in. She had traded love, loyalty, and security for a mirage. And now it was gone. 1 year has passed since that day in court. A year since I let go of the life I had built over 2 decades. I tell myself I've moved on, that I've healed. But healing is a strange thing. Some wounds close, others linger. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I find myself reaching toward the empty side of the bed. Or I'll pass by the coffee shop where Lily and I used to sit, her textbook spread out, Her eyes lit up with determination while I helped her study for exams. The grief isn't for Rebecca. She showed me who she was. It's for Lily, because I raised her. I gave her everything. And in the end, she walked away like none of it mattered. I was nothing to them anymore, and I had accepted that. I had made my choice, stepped out of their lives, and told myself that was the end of it. And for a while, it was. Until one quiet evening, sitting on the back porch with a half-empty glass of whiskey in hand, I heard a knock at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it and froze. There stood Lily, shoulders hunched, face pale, dark circles hollowing her eyes like she hadn't slept in days. Behind her, barely recognizable, was Rebecca. Her face was gaunt, her lips trembling, and her hands twisted the fabric of her coat with anxious fingers. For the first time since the divorce, neither of them looked certain. The arrogance, the righteousness, they were gone. All that remained were two broken women standing in the wake of the wreckage they had helped create. "Please," Lily whispered. Her voice was raw, barely more than a breath. "Can we talk?" I stared at her, searching for some trace of the girl I had once raised, but all I felt was a dull, heavy emptiness where love used to be. "Why?" I asked, my tone flat. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice fragile and cracking. We made a mistake." A dry laugh slipped out of me, hollow, cold, and stripped of anything resembling humor. "No, Rebecca," I said quietly, "you didn't make a mistake. You made a decision." Her face collapsed, and for the first time I saw it, regret, real and sharp, etched into her expression. "Scott left me," she said, her voice breaking under the weight of her confession. "He wasn't who I thought he was. He used me, cheated on me, and when things got hard, he walked away without looking back." I inhaled slowly, the irony bitter on my tongue. "Fitting," I said. Lily stepped closer, swallowing hard, her lips trembling. "Dad," the word landed like a punch to the gut. "You don't get to call me that anymore," I said, my voice even and unmoved. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she hugged her arms, as if trying to hold herself together through sheer will. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I believed Mom. I thought Scott was some kind of lost love, and I thought you'd always be there. I didn't realize. I didn't know what we were losing." Her voice cracked again. "You assumed I'd always stay, no matter how deeply I was cut," I said gently. "But you were wrong." She sobbed, broken and shaking. "Please don't hate me." I let out a sharp breath and shook my head. "I don't hate you, Lily, but that doesn't mean I owe you anything now." Rebecca wiped her face with trembling hands and stepped closer. "Please," she pleaded. "We can start over, be a family again. I know I hurt you, but you loved me once. We can fix this. We can." She reached out to take my hand. I took a step back. "No, Rebecca," I said, voice low but clear. "You don't get to break me, then come crawling back to pick up the pieces just because no one else wants them. You chose your path. Now walk it." Her face twisted with pain. Lily let out a quiet, strangled sob. I shut the door, and I stood there for a long moment, listening to the sound of muffled crying fading behind the wood. Then I turned, walked back out to the porch, sat down in my chair, and took another slow sip of whiskey. The sun was sinking behind the trees, painting the sky in amber and blood orange. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known in a long, long time. Peace, freedom,